Welcome to the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. I'm thrilled you're here. My name is Jason Elkins, and in addition to being your host, I'm also a former U.S. Army paratrooper, third-generation commercial hot air balloon pilot, paramotor pilot, ex-Montana fly fishing guide, advanced open water scuba diver, and a full-time nomad that's visited more than 30 countries on 6 continents. As a seasoned adventure travel expert with a passion for creating and sharing meaningful experiences, I'm on a quest to impact the lives of adventure travelers, tour operators they rely on, and the communities that host them. Every week, I bring you exclusive interviews with fascinating adventure tourism experts who have agreed to share their personal stories, favorite destinations, and some invaluable travel insights they've picked up along the way. We'll enjoy a casual conversation, create some connections, and likely share some laughs. It's my hope that by the end of each episode, this big world will feel just a bit smaller. Let's get started, shall we? Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. Excited to have each and every one of you back, but also super excited to have my guest today. She's actually calling in, and she's in Bali, and I'm in Quito, so we're clear around the world. I think it's super early there. So, Chelsea, I really appreciate you getting up early. We've got Chelsea Ross. She is the founder and creative director at Goddess Retreats. Chelsea, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Jason. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm very excited to be having a chat with you.
Yeah, it's super exciting for me. We had a conversation, it was a month or so ago, and just really enjoyed that. So I'm happy that you were able to come back, and especially to deal with the time zone difference and be up so early. And it's pretty impressive. So thank you so much. You must have something to share with us. So I look forward to getting into that.
Oh, that's okay. I'm a surfer. I'm usually getting up about this time, not usually being interviewed, but
well, I'll do my best to make it just as exciting and just as much fun as surfing, but no promises. So let's jump in. I really want to hear your story, kind of figure out how you got from, kind of where you were to where you are now. But I also want to give our listeners a chance to just kind of get their head around, if we can do it in 30 to 60 seconds, but help them get their head around what is Goddess Retreats.
Goddess Retreats is a women's only wellness retreat. And so we cater obviously exclusively to women. And the idea is to create a week where women can come and really get in touch with their we call inner goddess, which is our kind of highest self, really connect with our authentic, true inner self, and come away with some being rested, inspired, and sort of ready to go out into the world and just be themselves even more. And that's where I feel like women express their highest self.
Very, very cool. Should we touch on the surfing part of this right off the bat, or should we get into that later? Because it's an interesting part, and I'm excited to get there.
It might make sense, yeah, because Goddess Retreats originally started off as Surf Goddess Retreats. So I was the first women's only surf yoga spa retreat in the world. Before then, actually, it was just surf camps. I wanted to create a space where women could learn to surf because it was very inaccessible at the time. This is 23, 24 years ago. Goddess Retreats evolved out of that, out of surf, because there also wasn't a lot for women in general, to be honest. And so I was doing the surf retreats for quite a while, and then women go oh, I really want to go on this women's retreat, but I just don't want to learn to surf. And I was like, oh, okay, well, come along. And we created Bali Goddess, where women could choose all different activities around Bali. It's such a wonderful cultural place, and it's also creative. There's so many things to do. All also tied into personal development, because I was a life coach way back in 1999. I became a life coach. So it's always had those two elements. It's continued to grow on and on as the years have gone on. So we offer a lot of different programs now to sort of cater for all different women.
There's a lot to discuss around that. And the first question that comes to my mind, you mentioned that surfing was inaccessible. And I think you were meaning for women. So tell us more about that, because honestly, I wasn't paying attention. I didn't grow up around surfing, and I have no idea what it was like 20 or 30 years ago for a woman that said, you know what, I want to go surfing. So let's dig into that a little.
Yeah, I mean, we could even kind of go back about 40 years. When I'm half Australian, half Canadian, and that's why I have the strange accent. Growing up in Australia, surfing was always more of a men's sport. There was no surf schools, and surfing was really just an oral tradition that was passed from one person to another. And primarily, unless you came from a surfing family where, everybody learned to surf, usually it's sort of passed from, male to male. So I'm half Australian, half Canadian, and I didn't grow up in a surfing family. And it was really, so it was something that you sort of had to find somebody to teach you. And also, notoriously, sort of, I guess, in Australia, like, it was definitely a male sport, and it was definitely not encouraged. It was even sort of captured in a movie back in the day called Puberty Blues, which was all about this woman who bucks the system and, goes and learns to surf in the horror of her friends. And that always stuck with me. And that was, I think, the 80s. So I never learned to surf. I body surfed, I, boogie boarded, everything, but I just didn't have the opportunity. And it wasn't until I moved to Bali in 1997 that I came, and there was these little umbrellas on the beach, and they would rent boards, so I could have my access to a board too, because surfboards are expensive as well, especially, and again, no schools, no place to rent them. So I was like, fantastic, I can learn to surf. And I went out and I tried, and the guys there would, gave me a couple of lessons. I just feel really fortunate in that at that time, friends of mine said, oh, there's this woman who used to be a professional surfer back in the 80s, and she's coming into Bali, and, she's available to teach lessons if you like. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I do. So I was extremely lucky that I actually had a female teach me. And of course, she came from a surfing family, and as I started to do it, I mean, I loved it. And then my other friends, my girlfriends, were like, oh, we want to try this too. So, there'd be a little posse of us out there. And I always remember, like, one of the first times, there's about 7 of us. And this guy surfer just looked across at us in the surf and was like, what's going on here? Because you just did not see groups of women surf. Very rarely there might be just one. And I think that was because of accessibility, because access to boards, access to being taught. And I mean, now you can see, so I learned to surf, and then it was about 5 or 6 years later when I started Surf Goddess that the first surf schools had just opened. And we're still working with the original surf school that there was. So at that time, it was becoming more accessible, but it was more about bringing it into the minds of what was available for women to experience. So, and also at that same time too, there was a lot of things that were kind of in their kind of infancy, like solo travel and that. So definitely it's been about accessibility and creating these opportunities. That's sort of been fundamentally at the heart of Goddess Retreats and originally Surf Goddess.
You know what's coming up for me as I listen to you explain this, and you talk about kind of the oral tradition, kind of maybe father to son or uncle to whatever, and all this stuff. And I don't know, I'm curious what your thoughts are as a guy from my perspective. I've been married twice, so I know a little bit about challenges between men and women. And I remember one of the things, I worked in the fly fishing business, and I was a fly fishing guide, and I could take out pretty much anybody and have fun and teach them how to fish, and it was great. But boy, the minute I tried to take my ex-wife with me to go fishing, it was a train wreck. And she didn't enjoy it, and we would get in fights. And when she'd go fish by herself, she was fine. But it was just, there was something about having that dynamic between a man and a woman that know each other, or maybe it's not just men and women, because I've had the same issues with my dad, I'm sure. But anyway, I suspect you have a lot of experience with this, having a bunch of women coming over the years and learning to surf with women. Does that resonate? Is that kind of the same thing in surfing, I think?
Yeah. That was the other thing. There's so many boxes that it ticks, and this is a funny one, because yes, so men and women approach activities differently, and so is surfing too. Obviously, this is very stereotypical, but like, men are very goal driven and probably a little bit more competitive. Actually, women can be competitive with themselves, but anyway, so this was a scenario that I used to get to. I mean, I would get a lot of guests, but one of the main ones, I'd be like, if I had asked a guest, like, oh, have you learned to surf before? And they're like, yeah, I tried it with my boyfriend, my father, my brother, whatever. And I'd be like, let me guess the scenario. They handed you a very short board. They pointed at some very large surf and like, yeah, come on, let's paddle out. And you paddled out, and they're like, just go. And you're like, just about to drown and you are like slightly traumatized and you want to try this again, but not with them. They're like, nailed it.
I get it so much. And it reminds me when I was, doing the fishing guiding thing, I would get couples quite often that would show up and maybe it was her first time or whatever. I don't know if she wanted to go or not. Sometimes she did, and I'd get him in this little boat and I would be rowing the boat. So I'm in the middle of the boat, usually put her up front. And at the very beginning of the day, I would look at her boyfriend, husband, whatever, and say, your job today is just keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything unless it's to point out an eagle or to say, great job, sweetheart. Those are like the only two things you can say. You can't say anything else. And inevitably 10 minutes down, we get in the water. 10 minutes later, he's like, I'm giving her some coaching and he's like trying to reinforce what I'm saying. And I would turn around and look at him. I was like, shh, shh, shh. What are you doing? What did I tell you? Keep your mouth shut. And if they didn't listen to me, probably within an hour and a half of an 8-hour day, she's reeling up the line and sitting back in the seat and saying, I just want to relax and look at the scenery. And he's clueless. He doesn't know what's going on. I know exactly what's going on. I'm like, see? So yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. So that's one of the things. There's a lot of great reasons why it is for women only. And that's one of them. First of all, when doing any activity, particularly surfing, I can talk about, is that we really encourage the women to obviously, of course, there's the goal of standing up and riding the waves, but we do it in a really supportive way. And we really encourage to enjoy the whole experience and obviously not get too focused on that goal, because also too, it's a bit like, probably like anything, when you get too kind of focused in and that, it tends to create a lot of tension. So obviously we can, being a woman and knowing what it's like to surf, we really focus on the camaraderie. We progress people. I mean, they start standing up in the first hour, but it's just done in a way that is a way that women like to learn, I would say. And it's quite different, and I've surfed with a lot of women and men, and men just tend to be very, very, they love the goal. I always think of like that arrow, they love that. And women, it's more about like, are we cheering each other on? When you fall off, it's like, it's all right, let's do it, let's enjoy the whole process. It's just a slightly different process, that's all.
So the question I have, Chelsea, on that, you mentioned women and men kind of do things a different way. And some of the women show up and you mentioned, of course, we're going to, try and get them to the point they can stand up and do this. But I suspect you have a pretty good number of women that come that maybe never get off their knees. I know nothing about surfing, so I don't know if that's a thing.
Yeah, most of the guests actually do stand up within the first hour. It's very, very rare. Maybe like 1 in 100 doesn't, make it up past their knees. And that's usually because they have more mobility issues on land or really, really, really self-doubt. It's one of the strangest things. This one woman could do Ashtanga, yoga, whatever, but she just had a mental, couldn't seem to see herself up on a board. But one of the main things, so this is also what's different with the instruction that I was talking about earlier, is that we're very technically focused and also really provide us the right support. So rather than going in on a short board, which is how sort of people used to do it before, because they go in on really big boards, so it's a really stable base. We do it at a sandy bottom, a very suitable spot. So you need the right equipment, you need the right location, the right conditions, and you need the right instruction. Because also too, a lot of other instruction, is that it's more like just paddle, jump up. And there's actually a lot more involved. It's a bit more like golf. Your eyes have to be in the right place. Your hands have to be in the right place. Timing. It's actually a really technical sport. So I would say in particular, that's been one of the things that we offer that's very specific. There's different types of, and now the surf industry and surf tourism is huge. And I feel like it's separated in, there's different types. I call it like vibe surfing. And there's a lot of vibe surfing where you go to beautiful spots. And it's a bit of that, like paddle and jump up, and you're just really there to catch the vibe. I would say our program in particular is about technical surfing. And of course, it's a great vibe. You're at a beach, you're in Bali in warm water. It's beautiful. But my goal has always been about creating surfers that will go on for the rest of their life if they want to surf and know like how to do it and do it quickly. Yep, no, they're usually up within the first lesson. And the other thing Sorry to interrupt, but the other thing
No,
I'd
no,
say
no.
too
Yeah, go ahead.
that's really great about women only, and why I did it women only, is that, you know, it's lovely to do things with everybody, but when we put women in a women only spot, they naturally are able to really, what's the word, like kind of like focus on themselves. I hate to say it, men are distractions sometimes in a good way or a bad way, like, but they
Well,
they are either way.
sometimes, hold on now. Sometimes women are a distraction as well.
Exactly,
I've been here
exactly.
for 50 years, and most of my distractions have been involving
Exactly.
women.
And it works the same for women. So it's lovely. You take away the distraction for the most part. I mean, they're at a beach, but it's like they really, and especially like we're talking about that couple dynamic, you know, whether you're, and I really love that women travel solo too. That's my favorite. I mean, look, we have a lot of friends coming. We have a lot of family coming. That's definitely grown over the years. But originally, I would say still about 80% of our travels are solo. And I just love that for women and people, because it really allows you to focus on yourself. You're not wondering what the person you came with is doing, how they're managing their emotions or frustrations. You just get to just work on yourself. And that's part of the retreat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let me ask you this, because you've got this figured out, and I'm curious, did you have to learn some of this the hard way? Did you ever try and do mixed groups, or did it start out at all like that, or did you just kind of intuitively know that I don't need to learn that lesson the hard way? I think we're just going to go with what you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my background originally, I originally started, I've always been interested in psychology. I originally started off studying to become a psychologist and diverted into marketing. And then, like I say, I did become a life coach. So I spent a lot of time thinking about,
Mm-hmm.
how people work, how we process things, personal development, what space, doing a lot of retreats myself. But, actually, there wasn't too many women only ones. But anyway, like I've thought a lot about this, and learning as a woman. So I've basically taken all kind of my understanding of dynamics and gone like, let's just create the perfect scenario that we can for women. And that's fundamentally what I try to do throughout the whole, and continues on through our other programs, is to find these optimal, because what I actually did was too, is I took a lot of my life coaching workshops, and fundamentally, even though I wanted to teach women to surf, the whole week was really, at the time, so I'd never ever contemplated men, but I did contemplate before starting it. It's like, do I want to do a life coaching retreat
Mm-hmm.
or the surfing retreat? And I thought, no, especially back in that time, spending a week, navel gazing and doing deep workshops and all that, I was like, oh, that's a lot. I want to have more like levity. And I felt like from my experience of learning to surf, it really, really empowered me. So not only is it quite, it's very physically challenging, but it's mentally challenging. As I said, you have to keep this kind of flow state to get in flow with the ocean. There's so many wonderful, actual, real kind of almost, spiritual lessons that surfing can teach you.
I would think so, because I mean,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
you're getting away from your normal stuff, whatever you were carrying
Yeah.
with you when you came. You check that in the bungalow, and you go out on the water, and you're doing something that doesn't feel maybe like going to a therapist, but maybe has a lot of the same benefits
It
and is a
sure
lot more
does.
fun. And I'm curious about, and I know maybe this is an easy question for you to answer, but the typical woman who comes to the retreats, what kind of stuff are they bringing with them? Are you comfortable discussing that in general terms? And then what's it like after they've been with you for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 days a week or something like that? What do you see happening?
Yeah. Well, we get all sorts of women. Like I say, about 80% would be solo travelers. I've found over the years, and I'll just talk about sort of the core. I mean, we just get all types of women. All of them obviously are interested in personal development and continually growing. I mean, that's a beautiful aspect of the community that we've attracted. And so they're always interested in exploring and changing and growing and seeing where they can grow. So I think that's fundamentally at the core of everybody, because you just wouldn't pick our type of retreat as a holiday if you weren't interested in that.
Are there any stereotypes? I'm curious if there's any stereotypes that you'd like to kind of
Well,
address
definitely.
directly, because I have stereotypes. I think a lot of people think, okay, a woman traveling by herself to Bali for retreat, and I'm not going to share what is rolling around in my
It's not
head,
going to
but
be what you think it is. No.
I know that's why I'm asking this question because I've been to Bali as a single divorced guy, so maybe my stereotypes revolve around that. I don't
Yeah.
know, but you
There's
tell
a
me.
lot of there's a lot of different aspects to Bali. The women we get are usually women who are A-type women, who are professionals, who are very driven, who have a very short time to have a holiday, and because they're very A and very A-type, they want to have a really amazing week in 1 week and tick all the boxes and have self-improvement, be healthy, do all the things and do all the things. So that's the kind of women we get. We get a lot of like lawyers, doctors, managers, nurses, teachers, just and I think that and again, this is just the core. We also get a lot of now mums and everything. We get a lot of, so the main thing, again, no matter what their profession, no matter what their age or whatever, it's usually women who are in a period of their life when they're in transition. Again, this is a really appealing place to come when you're transitioning into different things. It allows you a really good break from what was previous. It also allows a really great time for reflection, usually. And that's why, like, our line is awaken, inspire, and celebrate the goddess in you. And the inspire part is that it's a beautiful place to kind of like reimagine life, reassess life. So things like changing careers, exiting maybe from uni to into a career, exiting relationships. Now it's like we're getting women who are coming into retirement, empty nesting. Like they're usually going through some milestone birthdays. It's usually great, and that's what retreats always kind of really were for. And that's why I called it Surf Goddess Retreats, not surf camp, because there was a lot of there's mainly men's surf camps out there. And that's what's different between a surf camp and a surf retreat, is that the idea of a retreat originally was that you would go on like a meditation retreat, a yoga retreat, and it would be a place where you would retreat from the world and have this introspective time to get in touch with your inner self and understand yourself and more about your life, the world, everything. That's the original traditional retreat. And we do bring that into our experience. And I think the word retreat is, like a lot of things, has become very watered down and used everywhere these days.
Right.
But that
You
is
know,
what a retreat originally was.
Chelsea, you said something as you were describing, which you're right, by the way, that didn't really align with my stereotypes. And what you were describing, and I don't like stereotypes, but I'm honest
That's,
enough with myself to
that's
I'm
fine.
honest enough with
Stereotypes,
myself to admit that I have them.
they're all there for a reason. They
They're
didn't
there.
come out of a vacuum.
But you said something interesting. You said A-type personalities, women that, C-suites, executives, lawyers, doctors. And I'm just guessing, I'm not a woman, but I'm guessing there might be someone listening to this that's like, holy crap, that does not sound like fun going to hang out with a bunch of those types of women. Because maybe they're a little bit less, maybe they're more, not more anything, but it's just, I'm gonna put out what I'm thinking, right?
You go for it.
Is okay. Let's say I work in a corporate environment and all of my bosses and the CEO of the company are all these A-type personalities that
Mm.
honestly I probably want to get away from when I go on vacation. So I hear you saying, oh, there's a bunch of these people that remind me of maybe the people I'm trying to get away with. But I suspect that in this all women environment, something really unique happens that you don't see in the corporate world with these same women that are expressing themselves in one way in the corporate world maybe show up and express themselves different. So what do you want to say to that woman who's like, I don't want to hang around a bunch of A-type personality women?
Well, they're not all A-type, first of
And I
all.
know they're not, and I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to create a controversy here. I'm just curious. I'm just like, and of
Yeah.
course, guys have their own ideas about A-type women,
Yeah, I understand.
sometimes.
And
Yeah.
that is, and so, and I would consider myself probably an A-type woman. And the thing is that they do like to holiday in a particular way. But the great thing is, one of the things I created, particularly, I put a lot of intention into our schedule and what we are doing. So it was really about creating enough balance to like, so first of all, A-type women are women. And the wonderful thing is that we create this very supportive kind of like very nurturing. So we allow a space for them to drop this potentially, the shield that has to be up sometimes in the world, and that's just the way it has to be. And they can get in touch with their vulnerable sides. There's a lot, and one of the beautiful things is breaking that idea. One of the first sort of really big misconceptions that people had when I first started this, again, because there wasn't really anything from like, oh my God, you get a bunch of women together, isn't it going to be like a bitch fest? And but I mean, and I was like, actually, no, it's not. You know what happens is if you create the right space where people can really be authentic, there's no makeup. You kind of, most women can wander around in their robes, they're just, and they end up just chatting. And there's a wonderful sharing of life experiences. There's usually lots of tears, there's lots of hugging, because they, what most wonderful thing that happens on the retreat is that women start to share their experiences and, understanding that you're not alone in the world. And some of the challenges that we face are also challenges other people face. So we're not doing life wrong. We're not like struggling, thinking, oh my gosh. And being able to talk about it in a place where it's fully accepted and there is, empathy and compassion. Women are able to access this. We even have women from the army, come and, they access this place in themselves and with other women, and it's just all hugs and really deep sharing. And some, lots of comments I have come away with like these. I've stayed in touch with these women for years and decades. They do cultivate really deep friendships, and I think more and more that has always been important, but now with the amount of technology and technological isolation and having this in real life connections and we're sharing and just hugging and stuff like that, it's so magical. That's the bit that they love the most. And at the same time, so I do understand, so A-type women, just like A-type any people, don't like to sit around too much. So we give them activity. You have activities in your group activities. So whether we're all doing yoga or all having dinner, and then there's alone time, and then there's small groups. So you also are able to balance out how much you want to interact with people during the week. And one of the things I've always said from day one, which is what I learned being a life coach, is like there's no shoulds. So no shoulding on yourself, because that's what a lot of everybody does, is like, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. And so we've set up the week, and it's like, if you don't feel like doing anything, you don't have to do it. So, because I'd be like, we're not going to wake you up for, yoga. You can be like, where are you? Like, if you want to spend the whole week in your room and then sleep, that's fine. If that's what you need to do, just do it however much you want to do. So it sort of just allows people to also regulate how much interaction they have with the group. Because, I don't know if there are, experiences where we're all doing everything as a group, and that can just get like overwhelming, and that doesn't happen on the retreats.
Well, I love what you said about that, the should thing. I've heard that before. I, have spent a little time in the personal development world as well, both doing and receiving some coaching. And I think what's, you bring someone to a place like your place and say, okay, you don't have to do anything. It's like, wow, what a departure. And probably really, really hard for a lot of, I don't want to speak for the women, but I suspect it's hard for some women to break that. Maybe they've been working for the last 20, 30 years, and they finally go do something for themselves, and they get there and someone says, well, you don't have to do anything. They're like, but I don't know how to do that.
Usually I have to stop the real A-typers from actually cramming their whole week. They're like, okay, I want to surf, and I also want to climb this mountain. I want to do the bike ride. I want to go down to here. I'm like, all right. And if they really, really want to do it, we do. But sometimes we're like, okay, just let's see how it goes. Let's see how, and that's part of the retreat. It's part of the thing that we're, trying to educate or cultivate is slowing down that feminine. We do unlimited spa treatments, which I think most women really love, because they're like, I've never been so pampered in my life. Because massages and everything are very, it can be quite costly. So having an opportunity where you can have multiple massages a day, facial scrubs, maybe that calms everybody down too. They just come out like, oh, I'm so relaxed. So it's really about providing that balance of like inspiration, relaxation, connection. There's a whole bunch of things that I kind of throw into there so that we get this ultimately feeling very empowered by the end, connected with themselves, de-stressed and slowed down, reconnecting with women, sharing some of the deepest things that they've been carrying. Because one of the things that I really learned a long time ago was whether they're a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, Elon Musk, all those sorts of characters that are huge up there, or us regular, people, everybody is dealing with something. Everybody has challenges in their lives. Everybody have things that are going well. Everything have things that are challenging them, and they're trying to wrap their heads around it and trying to live their best life. And it's very rare that we can find spaces where we can honestly talk about that honestly. And also, one of the most important things I think is about being able to talk about it with people who don't know you. Obviously, we can go to therapists, but can you imagine having a space where you can talk about things where you're not sort of carrying the bias of what your family members might think of you, your partner might think of you, your friends even might think of you, because we often get put into this box and it actually limits us. So that's, again, part of the retreat is coming to, and that's why it's Awaken the Goddess in You. It's really about finding that inner authentic self, maybe peeling away some of the shoulds that have been put on women over their lifetime, and reconnecting to what really inspires them, what they really value. And that's, again, coming back from that coaching core background. I really want to get to that authentic person, because I really, really believe that ultimately your life happiness comes when you can live from the inside out, from where your true values are, what really sparks your spirit, like you naturally are enthusiastic about. And if we can live from that place most of the time, maybe we can't do it all the time, but most of the time, then for me, that's the key to a very, very happy life that feels fulfilling. So it's really about using this time to do that. And one of the things that we do on the retreats, moving beyond surfing, we have wellness and healing and Bali Goddess, which is one of the most popular, is that they get to choose from about 16 different activities. And I've broken it down into active things for the active women, like climbing mountains, whitewater rafting. And then we've got other ones that are more creative, batik making, jewelry making. And then we've got spiritual ones where you can go to temples, you can do these, talk to healers, quantum healing. You can just, there is such a broad sound bars. Part of my intention behind the retreats is to allow women to try out all different things that they might not try in their real, in their normal life, so that they can go, I really, this sound healing thing, I really like it. And I haven't done yoga before. And maybe when I go home, I actually just got a text message from a past guest, and she's like, I finally found a yoga practice that I like. And it's helping me just feel really grounded in the day. And that's thrilling to me, because I'm like, I'm so glad. And I say, I found sound healing. Now I'm going to go see an acupuncturist now. Just opening up the opportunities and the possibilities.
I love that, because the typical vacation, you go and you maybe do some cool stuff. But, if you live in Iowa in the US and you go on vacation and you go whitewater rafting and you decide, man, I really like whitewater rafting. Well, good luck finding that in Iowa, for anybody that's, familiar with Iowa. So I guess actually that was the question I was going to ask you, is how do you help the women kind of set them up so that when they, maybe it's been 10 years since they've done something like this, and they come and they've got a week, and we all know that sometimes we go to these great things, we have a lot of fun, we feel like we're connected with ourselves, and then we go home and we're right back in our normal routines, and then 2 weeks we're just as stressed as we were before we went. So you kind of touched on that, and I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into that, maybe. If you have any thoughts that come up around that.
Yeah, I think that is definitely one of the areas that I get asked about a lot. The idea for the week is, well, not obviously, but we give our guests a journal, like a life coaching journal with prompts, so they really can explore some of the things in their lives, what they like. So we really ask them to consciously connect with these things and make note of it. Ultimately, it's their responsibility to to carry that on when they get home.
You know, when you said that, Chelsea, I thought, wow, the next thing I want to ask you is, okay, how many emails and texts did you get from past guests that say, guess what, Chelsea, I went home and quit my job. Guess what, Chelsea, I went home and
we get a few,
changed my relationship direction, because you get I heard what I was going to get ready to say, but you get together and you start sharing ideas and dreams and all that stuff. And gosh, things happen, right?
I mean, and those, I have had women who were contemplating ending relationships and finally go like, okay, I found the strength to get through this divorce. A lot of these women I actually stay in contact with. I've been in contact with them for decades now, like a few of them. And it's about planting the seed. I think obviously if I had the time, I'd love to create a whole coaching group you could keep going on for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that might be one of the things in the future.
Yeah.
But it's really about what I'm really trying to do as much as we can on this. Obviously, it's about having a beautiful, restful break, really trying to teach these women to fish. That's why I loved, let's say, surfing, but any other activity we do, we have fitness ones. It's about feeling the empowerment. It's about embodying the thing while on the retreat, because there's one thing about doing a workshop and saying, okay, write down all the things you want to feel empowered about. It's another thing to go out and do it. So another beautiful example, a couple of weeks ago, we have a testimony up, is that one woman, climbing Mount Batur, they start at 2 a.m. and climb up this mountain to see the sunrise. She's like, halfway through it, I was like, what am I doing? This is, really hard, because it's a tough hike. And she said, but I got to the top and this beautiful sunset. She's like, and I did it. And there's a wonderful thing is that when you do the thing you say you're going to do, and that thing is hard, and you manage to do it, whether it's stand up on a surfboard, hike a mountain, travel across the world on your own, you own it. Mm-hmm. You internalize it. And so we try to get as much internalization experiences happening that week, so that it sort of registers as this new kind of, I don't know what the term would be. So if you're going and you're feeling inspired by what you're doing, you go, I remember that feeling, and I stood up on a surfboard. I can do this. That's one of my biggest mantras myself whenever I'm in tough. I can do this, So
Mm-hmm.
It's in that way, it's very empowering. And then also remembering all the conversations that we have there, really deep conversations, usually, about stuff that maybe they haven't had a chance to talk about before. And it gives women the courage to approach their life in a different way and open up the possibilities of what's available for them. So maybe they live in Iowa and they're like, and they're like, but I'm going to find a sound healing yoga class and inevitably, they might find one, and start that. And that might start them off on a completely different trajectory. So you never know. So it's up to them. But like I say, the best thing I've found is to actually, instead of talking about it, we make women do it, experience it, and it's theirs, and they take that away with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very, very cool. Actually, I've never been to an all women's retreat. Go figure.
Funnily enough.
I mean, and I've worked in the experiences and tourism industry for a long time. So I have had opportunities. For example, I managed a lodge where we had a lot of guys come to fish, and their wives, girlfriends, whatever, would come and didn't generally fish as much as the guys. So we had a whole program where I always feel weird saying this, but where basically the ladies would go out and go snorkeling and look for manatees and do all this really, really cool stuff, while the guys are standing on the front of a boat all day with their feet sore because they want to catch the biggest fish or whatever. But what I remember is when everybody was at the lodge together, there was the atmosphere was totally different. And every once in a while, I would go out with the ladies, and they didn't see me as a threat, because I wasn't anybody's boyfriend, anybody's husband. I worked there. I was there just to go have fun with them. And I saw a whole different side of them when we'd be out on the boat snorkeling and doing all this stuff. And honestly, it was more fun. Honestly, it was more fun to go with the ladies. But this has nothing to do with the question I was going to ask you. Question I want to ask is, I suspect that you have people that come and they go back home and they return. My question is, do they return with friends or family, moms, sisters, daughters, or is it just like, no, this is for me. I don't want my mom there as I'm sharing stuff with the group. I mean, I know everybody's different, but what do you generally see? Do people want their family members there, or are they pretty happy to just be around a bunch of strangers, starting out as strangers?
We've had, I'm just thinking of some guests, like one woman came with a friend, then she brought a daughter, then she brought two other friends. We have other ones that just come back on their own because it's their time. Yeah, we've had a bit of a combo of everything. And definitely for us, a lot of our guests are recommendations. So a lot of women are like, I went on this, you have to experience this, like that. That is a lot of it. So I would say, yeah, a combination, but ultimately I do often recommend, and I really enjoy it when people go like, yeah, I thought about bringing my friend, but then I thought, no, I just want to do this myself. And I've had some who have come and have had friends go like, we're coming. And they're a bit like, oh, on, like I wish I had done this myself. And I'm like, come back, do it yourself. I think we're getting a lot more mothers and daughters of all ages, older mothers with grown daughters and mothers with even teenage daughters now. That's been I would say one of the biggest changes, and I think that that's lovely because what I can, and actually, funnily enough, I just did a retreat with my mum, and it's a wonderful thing to share with family members. As much as I love the solo one, but it is actually really another great thing because it's obviously we've got this spiritual and personal development undercurrent that runs through it, and it's all very intentional. And that's one thing I was going to say too, is that I've been on group holidays, and if you go on just like a regular group holiday, the conversation around a dinner table is extremely different when you get a bunch of women who have been, that it can range from everything about shopping and laughing about, everything, to really switching down the conversation into really deep, vulnerable life experiences, thoughts, fears, all that. And think that's the richness. And that's why, again, it's a retreat. And that's what makes it a retreat. And that's what makes it very different from just a regular group holiday, even if it was just a regular women's group holiday. Because if you're on a regular holiday, and that's wonderful and it's very fun, you have to cultivate a place where it's safe for people to access those different areas, because otherwise
Right.
it's not appropriate, or I wouldn't recommend it. You know what I'm saying? Like we have to keep
Right.
it.
I suspect that if let's say you've got a women's group traveling and maybe a
Yeah,
woman trip leader, but they're having dinner in the restaurants at a
yeah,
hotel. They're
yeah,
in shuttle buses going here and
yeah.
there, and it's just not that opportunity. But it sounds like what you're saying is you need to be able to facilitate that and it sounds cliche, but
Create a
create a space,
space.
right?
You do. You have to create a space, and I think that's one of the things that we do really, really well, because obviously with myself and the women that I work with who help to guide the retreat, because we have about three to five guides at each location to really hold that space to create that place where people can open up. That it won't just happen if you don't really consciously go, I'm going to create this. And that's one thing that's unique for us.
And I recognize I'm speaking from a man's perspective, and I don't know anything about this. And I've been around, I have women in my life, and when I reflect, like in my mind, the vast majority of women do not have a space. If the ones that I've been in relationship with, if they really needed space, they would go hire a psychologist and they'd go to
Yeah,
therapy or something,
yeah,
right?
that's right.
But that was kind of, in my experience, that was kind of the last resort.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately. And if
Yeah,
they had had that space ahead of time, things might have been a little easier. So I'm just envisioning a lot of the guests that maybe to come spend time with you, like they really don't have it. They're around their husbands, their kids, their colleagues, and if they're executive level A-type personalities at work, who are they gonna be sharing that stuff with at work? And if they're so busy with work and kids and family, and how do they have a group of friends? And if they do have a group of friends, what do they do other than get together for coffee every once in a while, you know? So
exactly. Coffee or cocktails, that's sort of the stereotype that's, given to women.
and when they go have cocktails, they go have cocktails together and then they get home and their husband's sitting on the couch pouting because he's lonely and it's Friday night and why are you out with the girls, right? So I get it. It's got to be really, really. Now, I also think that most men have some of the same challenges because I think most men don't also have space and aren't very good at creating space for each other. And they're maybe a little bit more reluctant to go search it out. But
yeah. Well, that's one of the things that is one of the futures that's coming on board, is that I have a couple of male partners and friends, and we are currently trying to put together a men's retreat. We know, like, one of the things, because there is that need now, I think maybe men are ready a bit more to have that format. Definitely, just like most yoga classes you go in, it's 90% women. Men, I don't know, I'm
yeah, I've been there. I've been there. I'm usually that one guy.
And we want to put together again something like what we've done at Goddess Retreats, because we want it to go deep, but not, too like what, a bit too woo-woo and a bit too out there for most men. But we want a place where men can come together. But I'm really learning about what they might want, because for me, Goddess Retreats really was just an outpouring of the perfect experience, holiday that I wanted to experience.
Could you envision either like splitting your facilities? Okay, the guys on this side, the women on this side. So like a couple can come and she can go do her thing and he can go do his thing for a week, and they don't even see each other for a week. And then maybe they do an extension to, I don't know, somewhere else on Bali after that. Would that work, or is that?
It might. I don't know if we have that much facility, but it may be, and definitely
or partner with somebody else down the beach or something. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely. I think what we'll do probably right now is we're looking to maybe put in maybe one's men's retreat every quarter. Just use the facilities that way. I mean, one of the things that I do notice with a lot of women who are in couples is, if they can both travel, oftentimes, and particularly in the beginning, I noticed is that the guy will go off on either, where's your husband? He's on a fishing trip right now. He's on a surfing trip. He's doing the manly, his manly trip wherever he's going, and I'm here while they're traveling together, or he's been on a trip and this is her chance. So there's a bit of tag teaming, especially if they have kids.
Right. I remember I went through some coaching programs at a point in my life as things were transitioning, and it was mostly women in the groups, to be honest with you, because that's just the way it is. It's personal development type of stuff, that woo-woo stuff. And I remember most of the women that were in any sort of relationship with a man, which is most of them, it's father, brother, husband, son, whatever. And most of them were like, I want my guy to come do this as well. And they spend it was like a 4-month program. They spent most of the 4 months trying to figure out how to get their guy to come do the program. And then the next group would start and there'd still be 10% guys. So it wasn't always successful, because obviously not all of them.
And that's reality. And I don't know why. Maybe you can answer the question.
I don't know.
Women are much more open to this personal development, spiritual development.
I think it's because they have permission. I think, I don't know, I'm just talking out my butt.
It could be,
but I think it's that they have permission to ask for help, and guys are just, women will say, I want my guy to talk more. I want him to open up more. And what happens when he does? Oh, shit. Yeah.
I think what you just said something really interesting there. They have permission to ask for help. See, as a woman, I don't see going on a retreat as asking for help.
Yeah, no, or just take it, just claim it, or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, where I don't know, like a guy saying, you know what, I'm really stressed out. Well, they do. They'll say, I'm really stressed out. I need to go somewhere. So he might go on a fishing trip or a hunting trip or something. But and it's interesting because I don't think society and culture realizes this, but I was a fishing guide in Montana for several years. I can't tell you how many times it was me and one other guy who was a banker, a lawyer, a doctor, and we'd spend 10 hours on the river, you'd be surprised at how much conversation goes and how deep things get because we
Yeah.
don't talk about it. I mean, this is probably the first time I've ever mentioned it
Yeah.
about, but the conversation, people talking about divorce. I led a group of anglers to Venezuela, and I remember this guy once that, boy, he was going through it, and it was such a challenging thing for him. He bought like a little seashell necklace from a vendor on the street, and he's like, maybe if I give her this, I can save the marriage. And it's like the pain, and guys go through shit.
Oh yeah, but that's what I was saying. Everybody
So I hope you do
goes
something.
through
I'll
some.
go.
Yeah,
I'll go.
we'll have to have a chat afterwards because I think that's definitely it. It's about and obviously one of the things that I've been really understanding is how men share, and they share side by side doing activities, and that's how they open up, not in like front facing therapy. So that's what we're trying to start to really, again, I really, this is my thing. It's like, how can we set this up so that it is like goddess retreats, but obviously it has to be different in the way that men want to share in a different way. And, let's say another difference, we have a night off because women would love to go and explore the restaurants, and we sort of give them recommendations. They go off either as a group or one thing, and we're like, oh, for this men's one, because we are deep in planning this right now. And like, how would they like to do it? And my business advisor's like, oh no, men would all want to go together. Like they would not want to go off on their own and maybe do shopping. Like, let's do it all together. We'd all go to the restaurant, and it'll be and like just slight differences.
But you gotta have one. I think you gotta have one-on-one time for the guys, because
definitely there will be.
Yeah, you have more than two guys together. There's the dynamics get kind of weird. And every real conversation I've had with a man has been one-on-one. And you know what I think, like, probably the best therapy for two guys is put them in a pickup truck towing a fishing boat and send them on a 6-hour drive to go fishing somewhere. And that's the stuff is going to come out. It's, side by side, like you said, sitting next to side by side to each other,
side by side,
with nothing else to talk to,
fishing
nothing or talk about. It just comes, So anyway, so when you do that, I want to have you come back and we can discuss what your learnings are.
And funnily enough, that's a little similar for women. It's like that opening up that space. So even though it's sounds woo-woo, but that's holding space, that's creating space, and that's sort of what we do on the retreats. Really, it's not all about like, okay, we're all going to like work on ourselves right now. We put a lot of it just in the experience, and I think that is where people can feel like, oh, I can open up, rather than right. Share your deepest, darkest in this circle now of sisterhood. No, nobody's. I mean, some will, but it's very challenging for us. So you cultivate these places.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's like when a couple maybe goes to therapy, and a lot of time the guy's like, I don't want to go in there because as soon as I walk in there, my wife's going to be sitting next to me or what, and another woman's probably going to be looking at me saying, okay, tell us what's going on.
Maybe it's better to go for a walk together and have a.
What's interesting that I will share that maybe anybody that's listening might find interesting is I've had a lot of conversations, one-on-one conversations with people through the course of the podcast, and sometimes we kind of dig into some stuff, and I can't tell you how many times after I stop the recording, the conversation is like, all the other stuff comes out that they don't want to share with the world. And it's been fascinating, the connections that get created that way. So maybe it's just, if we all just kind of make an effort to have conversations with people and hold that space for each other.
It is a human experience. And that's ultimately at the fundamental part of what we do at Goddess Retreats, is that it's beyond a holiday. Obviously, we make these beautiful experiences and do all the things that you want to experience on holiday. But for me, underneath, I know what we're doing is that we are creating these moments for them to connect with each other and themselves. And it's really and that's why I call it Goddess Retreats. It's really about connecting to your authentic self, your higher self. And like for me, because I'm beyond queen, it's like goddess. And for me, the goddess is also just a woman who is very whole and complete and knows herself and can communicate that in a very, congruent and grounded, empowered way. And if a woman can be like that, then they can also start to help and embody that and help other people in society do that. And we can I don't know, I just feel like it's a better way of relating to everybody. And
I gotta ask you this question because you're clearly very self-aware and you've had some time to think about this, and I'm curious what you'd like to share with our listeners. How the heck did you really get into this? Because you mentioned life coaching, you mentioned marketing stuff. What happened in your? Let's go deep. What happened in your childhood or growing up that caused you to now be sitting here with me having a conversation about women's empowerment and these groups and creating space? Was there anything particular that might inspire someone else that's listening to this to go take a similar route?
Well, I think yes.
That you're willing to share.
Of course I am. No, I'd be very honored to share it. The thing that drove me into psychology, or attracted me to psychology, and then, life coaching, and then all this stuff, was I was trying to fix myself. And I think that when I see a lot of people in the personal development space and the spiritual space, they are on a journey of fixing themselves. And when I was younger, I would say very low self-esteem. I had an eating disorder. I struggled with all the things of growing up and the expectations of being a person, a woman, or whatever, all these things. And I was really trying to find myself. So I went down the route of, yoga and retreats. So spiritual retreats and workshops, and, I did all the things. I mean, I was a seeker. And I'd probably say it's interesting because I feel like I've found it. Like and I started in my early 20s doing that. And I guess living in Bali, it's another story. I grew up with a family that traveled and were expats, but I was a seeker, and I tried all the things. I read all the books. I did everything. And particularly at the time when I started Surf Goddess retreats, I was still very much in that process with the life coaching, personal development. I'd come out of psychology going, it's not really one. Life coaching was really new. And I was like, this is fantastic. It's very, goal-oriented, focused, positive, find yourself. And over the time, since like 1999, I started meditating, and I started the yoga journey, which has been a very slow and long journey. And so this is a culmination of all that seeking. And I mean, the good thing about it is that I can say for me, because I've experienced it, I feel like I found out what works and what is fluff. So we just focus on.
So I got to ask you. All right. And I think from my perspective, I think what works is different for everybody. But have you gotten to the point where you're able to boil it down? Because we hear people say, follow your passions. We hear other people say, just pick something and stick with it. We hear so many different secrets to life, and life coaches. There's a lot more life coaches now than there were when you were really into it.
Yes.
And
I know.
Especially, and 90% of them are on Bali. I know.
They are. There's life coaching cafes that I drive past, and I can just watch these people coaching, and I just look at them, and they're all 20, and I'm like, okay.
They're all 20, and they've got their laptop. They're working 2 hours a day, and their mom sends them a lot of money so they can keep going. Yeah, that sounds bad. But anybody who's listening to this, I just lost some listeners. Anyway, maybe. Do you think there is? I mean, for me, and I don't know if it's working or not, but for me, it's just take action even when you're scared. I think that growth is on the other side of comfort. That's for me what's been good. I'm just wondering if you've come up with something.
I definitely have a lot of thoughts on this, and all those things are true. There's nuances to it though, and that is the wisdom. But it is, I think, ultimately, if I had to like really distill it down, it'd be what you just said, which is more of like principles or values. So I think one of the best characteristics you can cultivate in life is courage and discipline. So to do the thing that you might be scared of doing.
Oh, those sound like two different things to me, honestly.
Really?
Because I'm a little spontaneous. I have probably a little of the ADHD thing going on. Yeah. So I'm like, courage? Yeah, I'm not afraid to take a chance.
But you have to keep doing it.
Yeah, that's the problem. That everybody in my life is, geez, Jason, okay, you're doing this for 6 months and now you're already changing direction.
See, I was like that too. I'm very spontaneous, and I don't like, and that's one of the things, again, over 20 years I've learned, is that discipline and consistency. And that's, again, with the retreats, is like, there's a lot of retreats these days, but people put them on and just expect it to be like easy, and we're just going to do one and be fun. But it's like, to do it consistently, week after week, month after month, and to create that thing, it requires incredible discipline and focus.
Do you think that helps, though, if what you're doing is stimulates those needs for variety? Because that's what I think is what's going for me. Is, if I'm interested in what I'm doing and there's a lot of variety, I'm living the digital nomad life. I'm traveling around, and I can walk outside and go to the coffee shop and get all kinds of my dopamine fixes and all that stuff. So it helps me stay consistent with publishing and the podcast conversations. Like, every conversation's different. So that's why I've able to have done 120 episodes or so. Do you think that's an important part of it?
Yeah, it's an incredibly important part, because, again, that idea of, like, you have to follow your passion. It's like, you have to follow what you're truly passionate about, and that's, I'd say, is getting in touch with what sparks your spirit. Like, it's a natural enthusiasm and curiosity for that thing to do, and it really ticks those boxes. Because, again, like, for you, like, I too, I'm very similar. I don't love sitting down in the same spot all the time. I don't love doing the same thing all the time. So how do I create that sense of variety and spontaneity? And then I'll go away a lot and do things to satisfy that and come back. And how do I come back fresh? But one of the things too, because I get asked a lot about business, and I watch a lot, it's part of my kind of marketing mind. I love watching trends. And I've really seen this huge, obviously, explosion of, like, entrepreneurship and, But I see that it's this idea of, how do I make as much money as humanly possible? Before, what am I doing that I'm really passionate about? Like, are you really passionate about drop shipping? I did people are like, oh, how do you spot these trends? I was like, because this is what I wanted for myself. I'm passionate about it. And so I don't look for trend. And then as it evolved, it evolved as I did. So it's surfing, and now we've gone right into healing goddess and wellness goddess, which is much more, but that's the evolution that's come out of a natural expression from now, because I was like, oh, now I need to think about wellness. And of course, wellness has become this huge thing, but it's just lucky because I'm a human and I'm interested in wellness. I guess I'm just on time with everybody else.
Yeah.
So passion, like, follow your passion. You're going to need discipline to keep it going. I think courage is actually would be my number one thing. If you don't have the courage to do anything, you just won't do it. And you have to get out of your comfort zone, whether that's, signing up for a new class, or whether it's starting a new business. You can de-risk a lot of things. So, but ultimately those are things. So those are the kind of characteristics and principles I like to talk about, rather than just saying, like, if you do this one thing, you'll be successful, because there's a lot of nuances to it. I mean, that's one of the things I really love to share, and probably what we had talked about earlier, that I would love to share with people and maybe provide as a backup after our retreats, because I feel like a lot of advice is given, but they miss the nuances, and so it tends to be not great advice. If you just follow it to the letter.
Yeah, I think you and I get to come back and do a whole series of conversations, maybe just specifically for your group of ladies, whatever, so you can kind of stay in touch with them, because you're just so full of energy, for one. I'm halfway around the world. I can feel it and I can see it on your face. Okay. Maybe all of our listeners aren't able to see that, but it's been a fascinating conversation. I think we need to do it more. And I'm curious, though, before we wrap it up, what did I forget to ask you, or what should I have asked you, or what do you want to make sure that our listeners know that we haven't covered before we go?
Oh, I don't know. I think we've covered a lot. I really can't think of anything.
Nothing comes to mind. All right. Wonderful.
Nothing really comes to mind. No. We can leave it.
Well, I will mention to our listeners, we're going to have your website in our show notes. So if anything that you heard Chelsea say today resonated, I'm sure if you were listening, it resonated, because I don't know how it could not. And if you're still listening, I'm assuming that it's definitely resonating. So go click on the link, go to our website, and whether you decide to go do this on your own or bring some family members with you, do it. So Chelsea, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing your time with us, and
thank you so much
getting up so early for this conversation. Let's do it again soon.
My pleasure.
All right.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Chelsea.
I trust you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you're enjoying the Big World Made Small podcast, please take a moment to tell the algorithm by subscribing and posting a review so that others can benefit as well. I also invite you to take a quick trip over to bigworldmadesmall.com and join our private adventure travel community to receive new episode notifications, special access to our guest experts, and perhaps even some exclusive partner offers that we haven't discussed on the podcast. I'll publish another episode soon. Until then, keep exploring. It's the best way to make a big world feel just a bit smaller.